Ladies and gentlemen, we now move into our next segment, AI times are a-changing. Here use cases on NLP, AI in drone technology, and the impact GeoAI can create for the society. Starting with the first session in this segment, Decluttering the Noise, Decoding Vernacular NLP. The session will focus on how India has cracked the code of vernacular NLPs and how we are building a better ecosystem for Indian languages through holistic ways of engagement. The speakers for this session are Ankush Sabharwal, founder and CEO CoRover, with around 2 decades of experience in building SaaS products. Ankush has built and spearheaded global winning teams to build scalable and secure enterprise platforms. Joining Ankush, we have Ganesh Gopalan, CEO and co-founder, Gnani.ai. Ganesh passionately believes that AI will change the world for the better. He's a technologist for over 25 years and has an MBA from the Indian School of Business. To moderate this session, we have Sanjay Kukreja, Global Head of Technology, eClerx. Sanjay heads the software and infrastructure practice at eClerx Services Limited. He has over 25 years of experience in the field of consulting, technology, and outsourcing. It's a pleasure to have all three of you join us this morning. Over to you, Sanjay.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks for introducing this session and welcome Ankush and Ganesh. Ankush is the CEO for CoRover and Ganesh is the CEO for Gnani.ai. So if we can start by, you guys talking a little bit about what you've been doing. You guys are doing a phenomenal job around voice bot, chat bots. So if we can get a quick peek into what you guys are doing. So we'll start with Ankush.
Sure. Thank you, Sanjay. Thanks for having me here. Yes, so we are into conversational AI space. We have human-centric conversational AI platform. As we know, conversational AI platform is the one which creates virtual assistants, chat bots, voice bots, and video bots. So we added the human-centric part of it. I think we will start hearing more about human-centric, I think next 3 to 5 years, but we realize the need of having this kind of solution now. So that means we create the virtual assistant which look like humans, as close to human as possible. So I'll talk more about it as we go along.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Ankush. And Ganesh, we know that, Gnani is focusing a lot on the voice component. So if you can, talk about your journey.
Sure, thanks, Sanjay. So we basically, Gnani.ai is a voice-first conversational AI platform, right? And fundamentally what we do is a platform where there could be automated conversations on any channel, but we typically call ourselves, like you correctly said, voice-led, because we think that voice has its own complexities in form of, multi-intent, multi-entity kind of conversations, right? And something more, what we're also excited about is, we think we are the only platform which also has, authentication built into our conversational AI platform. So we have a voice biometrics, which folks have said is better than some of those, done by big guns, right? So so we have a voice biometric platform that sits along with our, conversational AI platform. And we've seen, it's been exciting times and. It's been, I would say a great 4 to 5 years, that we've seen an explosion of the markets. I'm sure you talk more on that going forward.
Thanks, Ganesh. Thanks. And, it's interesting. Both of you been in the market for some time. You've seen the market grow in India, the kind of addressable market that we have. So any thoughts on, what could potentially be the market size and how do you see the growth panning out in the next couple of years? So, we can start with Ganesh if you can give a sense of to us.
Sure. I mean, I'll let Ankush talk more on the numbers, but, fundamentally what I'm going to talk about is the kind of interest we've seen in the market, right? So we've seen interest right from, I would say, private companies, governments, and take an example of, say, the BFSI sector, right? Every company in that space, including financial institutions, banks, wants to see what features can be automated, right? So that you can reach more and more customers, right, easily. And in the context of this conversation, it's very important that it has to be in the own language of people or the language that they are comfortable in, right? So an automated
Right.
conversation in the language that people are comfortable in is extremely important. The second thing is the channel that they are comfortable in. For a lot of people, for example, you have just feature phones, right? So you need to have, for example, a bot on telephony lines, right, that reaches those folks, right, and is able to address all their inquiries. Now, for some people, it could be apps, right? For, let's say, an urbane audience, it could be, chat, right? So it's like I said, it's like a bunch of these, channels, and very importantly, like I said, in the Indian regional languages is very important. And, just to touch upon at this point, I think it's generalization when I say a particular language. So it's fundamentally in India, we speak 3 or 4 languages at a time. So really you need systems that understand or have the multilingual capability. So we're seeing the market explode. I think every quarter we talk to about 15 to 20 new organizations and start working with them. So we've seen huge interest right from government as well as the private sector. The private sector, we've seen interest from the banking side, I would say the automotive and a bunch of other sectors, and the government across the board, right? Because it's very important to reach each and every citizen of the country, right? And there are multiple of these conversations that are happening.
That's great. I think, you touched upon a very big point about feature phones, because, most of the people today talk about smartphones, even though India boasts about having more than 500 million smart devices, but, making sure you have voice bots available in vernacular language on those feature phones, that's a big push to the entire vernacular NLP. Ankush, we come to you for the numbers. How do you see, how big is the market? What kind of growth you're seeing over the years?
Yeah, so first of all, I agree with Ganesh, right? So the market is exploding. And right, sometimes if you go and talk to the customer, so they'll say, start with say Kannada first if it's the client in Karnataka, and start with Tamil first, and English we will see later, and they sometimes even don't know Hindi, don't want Hindi. So right, so now it's not the additional feature, that is the main feature now to have vernacular many languages. And yes, so we could touch this 675 million users, because we provide virtual assistants even to the feature phone users as well, right? So again, that is not the additional feature, right? Most of the clients what we have, they come up with features which most of the tech companies think they are the additional features, but they want as the main features, right? So like DigiSathi, if you see, that's the chatbot virtual assistant in all the channels from RBI. So that even works in feature phone as well, with the phone and other formats languages.
Right.
Coming to the number, so in India, the chatbot market is around $3 billion market, and globally it would be around $100 billion market by 2026. So just the chatbot market, so enterprise plus B2C versions of the chatbot, as the big techies are giving. So as I think when we say the conversational AI platform, we usually build platforms and chatbots for the enterprise, right? For a specific use case. So we don't usually build the chatbot saying you ask any question, you ask the spelling of a word, or you ask which is the capital of the state. So both the markets put together, it's going to be $100 billion by 2026. But the interesting part is, so the way we are disrupting, right? So all the conversational AI companies, so not only us, and there is definitely need of more companies like us, so that we can actually cater to the market, which is getting exploded, as Ganesh rightly said. It's going to be $3 trillion market. If you see, we automate any consumer touch point, right? Whether it's from voice, text, and the video part, where the consumer or the citizen talks or interacts with the service provider or the government. So all of them, if not all, most of the conversations can be handled automatically using some form of virtual assistance. So that market is around $3 trillion market. Yeah, so I think we're just around 2% of this. We all the companies put together has just acquired only 2% of the market. So huge opportunity for us and more players to come in this space.
No, absolutely, I completely agree. I think the numbers are The numbers are huge, as you pointed out. I think both of you also, touched about kind of client base that you have. Ganesh, you talked about focus around BFSI, private sector driving a lot of growth. Ankush, I know you guys are doing work for IRCTC, Ask Disha. I mean, do you see both government and private sector driving this growth for you guys, or is it driven by one sector more and the other one is just kind of catching up?
So maybe I'll take that first.
Yeah.
So fundamentally, like I said, definitely we see growth in both sectors, right? Obviously, the government is the obvious use case, or because of the number of people that you can reach, right? Which manual systems can't, right? And being a democracy, again, that becomes very important for the government, right? To have these systems that can enable services and a bunch of other things to make this happen. The other thing is, even other parts of government like defense need some of these features, so that some of the markets are just growing as well. Plus, like I said, the whole, the private sector, right? They really realize that, they have not been reaching out to their real audience in the right way, right? And the only way it can be done is, through automated systems, so that there's obviously people can get access to the services faster, right? And secondly, in the way that we naturally speak, right? So I think both these things are extremely important from both the sectors. And just to take back, the use cases, and it could be something as simple, if you take the BFSI sector, as simple as, for example, people wanting to know their bank balance, right? Wanting to know getting their account statement immediately without waiting for, few minutes, wait time for somebody to pick the call, right? It could be as simple as that, but it could also get more complex. It could help companies, help them with things like, lead qualification, onboarding of customers, collection processes, and the whole market research bit across industries. So there are like huge opportunities, I would say, across the customer life cycle, right? Given that large audiences who prefer to speak in their local language, which is very important. Again, getting down to channels, we talked about telephony automation, but there's also like a few years back, Google talked about vernacular voice and video as the big drivers, right? So that we see a lot of stuff happening on vernacular and voice, while a lot of stuff is starting to happen on the video side and some of this personalized communication that we see today.
Got it. And Ankush, what's your experience been? What which industry or government or private sector is driving growth for CoRover?
Yeah, I think again I would agree with Ganesh. So there is a growth being seen now, and I think we'll continue seeing the growth. And the data says with the CAGR from 30%, we'll see the growth across sectors. The government, private, yes, but even across sectors, whether it's travel, BFSI, retail, manufacturing, and even in all geographies, right? So, and if you see the charts, so they are so fascinating, and it looks like it's how it's possible, because if you see all geographies, right, whether it's Asia or Europe or Middle East or even Americas. So there is the constant kind of very steady slope upwards in the increment. It's not like the Asia is adopting this technology more than the Europe and the US and the vice versa. So it's kind of steady slope in terms of adoption of chatbot in various domains and even various geographies.
So my next one was, Ganesh, for you. You talked about focus around voice bots, and I know you mentioned to me earlier about using a lot of training data of vernacular recordings, to kind of train your AI engines. So how have you seen the technology around open libraries, these vernacular libraries evolve over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I think firstly, when we started, there were really no ASRs for Indian languages in the first place, right? So we and the company that the same time we started developing, we did for example, the first Kannada ASR in the world, right? And that's how we started. And so basically the data sets for building, for example, the ASR, right, are not publicly available and tend to be proprietary. And we have built over time very easily the largest data sets for annotated audio in the world for Indian languages and a bunch of other global languages as well. But we're talking about things like, for Hindi, we might have more than 100,000 hours of annotated audio, right?
Okay.
Plus, and again, recorded for various Indian kind of environments, like you think a person sitting in an auto and the noise that you feel there, a person sitting in the bus, the noise that you have in a train and a person talking. So you need this very localized, audio, not only the languages, but also the mixed languages that we speak. We never talk one language at a time. I'm sure in the course of this conversation, I've also used probably some Hindi words, probably even some Tamil words, maybe by mistake. So I'm sure that's something that we all do, and that's our nature.
Right.
So that's very important to have that data set on the ASR side. I would say on the and NLU again, we built a fairly large database, but now there are also a lot of libraries available. First and foremost, the problem particular to India or countries like India, and US is also similar in having English and Spanish being spoken together, is a multilingual capability, right? So we use some sort of multilingual BERT as well, right? And that's some of our starting points. But we also see a lot of libraries now in the market, like INLTK, has a library, right, with some basic tokenization and stuff that you could use libraries. AI for Bharat is a very interesting initiative that we are currently looking at, which has interesting transformer models for local languages. Again, that's important. We are also in some specific embeddings as well that you could probably look at and see whether it makes sense for your application and stuff like that. Then Google has recently released this Mural, embeddings, and you can try out some of that stuff again. The Google stuff could also be interesting if you're looking at it from a transliteration phase, because many of us
right.
like to type Hindi and other languages in English, right? So that's a model that takes care of some of those things. So obviously you need to do all the stuff on your own, but you can pick and choose some of these libraries and different models to see whether they can help you in certain applications, right?
Interesting.
So that's very interesting the way that it's going, and also very interesting to know some of these community movements that are happening in this respect.
Right. Okay, that sounds interesting. So the last question in this fireside chat, you guys talked about the amount of growth you've seen in the market in India, the kind of sectors you're talking to. How's the situation outside India? Where do you think that that's a big enough market for CoRover and Gnani to target? And if yes, what kind of use cases you see for vernacular NLP outside of India? So probably Ankush, if we can start with you.
Right. So we see very interesting use cases coming our way, and sometimes we think if it's America, it's majorly going to be English and yes, some of Spanish. But the kind of use cases which we get for one healthcare company which we're working for, so they want us to have a virtual assistant for. Actually, the users are senior citizens, and they want to give virtual assistant which can talk to the senior citizens the way human talks in the language of their choice. Right? If someone is Gujarati, especially the parents side, most of the young professionals are there and they are trying to find opportunities to get their parents, say from Punjab or Andhra Pradesh, from say Gujarat. So they speak in Gujarati or Punjabi and other languages. So we are working towards to provide virtual assistant in 15 languages, right? So that's very typical case. US customer, US citizens, but we providing virtual assistant in Indian languages, plus other languages like Spanish and French and few other languages. But apart from that, so though it's Arabic, even we try to work even different slangs of Arabic based on the region, even within Middle East and outside. Say,
so that's primarily catering to the dialect of the language, different dialects.
Yeah, it's beyond language now. It's Arabic, but it should be the Arabic which is spoken in Dubai, UAE, or say in Saudi Arabia, right? So now we are getting more personalized and more fine-tuned towards the authenticity and the demographics we support.
Perfect. And Ganesh, how has your experience been, in targeting market outside of India?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's very interesting to see some of the similar problems being faced by countries maybe outside India as well. Like for example, things like multilingual kind of conversations. Like we're working with a lot of customers now in the US for Spanish, right, as spoken in the US, right? And we also see a lot of interest coming from the Gulf region, for example. We also work with starting to work with customers in Indonesia for Bahasa. Right? Anywhere where there are large populations, I think it's definitely speaking a certain language, huge opportunities in expanding. And Ankush pointed out is definitely there is some interest that keeps coming from from an Indian language standpoint, especially languages like Punjabi and others.
Right.
In Western markets, what can you do to automate some of these services for them? But like I said, across languages, first and foremost thing is speak or have automated systems that talk to people in their own language, right? And also that the new stuff that we're seeing also is apart from all the stuff that we've seen, also how we can bring them level of authentication into the picture, right? So that's why we also brought in our voice biometrics platform, where we are seeing as part of our conversation AI platform, where we see authentication being very important for many of the transactions that happen in the local languages system.
Thanks a lot, Ganesh. And, thanks to both of you, Ankush and Ganesh. Wonderful session. It was a great learning for me. I'm sure the audience would have also loved it. And all the very best for a very bright future.
Thank you so much, Sanjay.
Thank you, Sanjay, Ganesh, and Ankush for that very interesting and insightful fireside chat. And of course, thank you, Sanjay, for chairing the session.